I'm Eddie.
And I'm Dom.
Welcome to this special edition of Monsters, Metal, and Moonsaults. Today we're going to be looking at the career and, I'm sure parts of his life, the immortal Hollywood. What else did he go by?
Incredible.
Incredible. Yeah, that lasted until Marvel said, you ain't using that shit.
Mm-hmm.
None other than Hulk Hogan. To me and Dom, he's the greatest of all time. Unparalleled. You can make arguments, but we really don't give a shit. He's the greatest of all time.
Ed says that. I've recently agreed with him on many aspects of Hogan being the greatest of all time, but I'd still throw my arguments out there for other guys. Overall, if you encompass everything about professional wrestling, Hogan is at the top of the heap.
Yep, without a doubt. And we're going to get into why we might disagree on some shit and agree on some shit, but we're going to get right into it. First, we're going to start off with Raw from this past Monday. What'd you think? I thought it was a pretty good show. Well, I'm not going to fucking ask you what you're thinking and go on about what I think. So, what'd you think?
I think the same thing that happens on a regular basis with me in the WWE right now is I'm not interested. Um, and I end up watching highlights of what happened this week. The most interesting part of Raw to me was the title change, the Street Profits getting the belts. Um, I think that was actually a good decision because the division's cursed, and I think they just need to get rid of that group at this point and start from scratch. Give Braun Breaker his own thing. The Profits give the tag titles some stability, and when they finally split those guys up like they've been teasing, there could be a better basis for it when they lose the belts. The LA Knight angle was good. I'm waiting for him to turn heel. I really am waiting for him to just lose his shit and turn
But
heel.
but the shit with him with the bloodline now, like it's almost like fuck it, we don't know what to do, then let's throw him back with the bloodline. It's constant. It seems it's like they don't know what to do with him, so they're like, just fuck it, we'll just have him be a part of one of the many, you know, tentacles or whatever the fuck it is of the bloodline. Like he's just one of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. They don't know what to do with him, hence he's back with the bloodline for the third time now in 3 years. And I'm at the point with him where you say they don't know what to do with him. I think it comes down to they don't know what to do with him because they don't want to do with him what they
Yep.
should do with him based on crowd reaction. He's not a guy that they want in certain spots, so now they don't know what the fuck to do with him. Instead of just listening to the flow of things and putting him at the tippity top for a sneeze, at least where the crowd wants to see him. If he was to go all the way to the top, win the big one on his popularity run, I don't think it would last forever anyway. Eventually, the crowd would be like, yeah, no. And a couple months later, he drops the title. They just don't know what to do with him because they're not going to be able to do what they want to do without what I just said. Yeah,
I'm starting to think though that it's not so much they don't know what to do with them, is that they're all about, or as opposed to they're all about, you know, uh Javon Evans, Ethan Page, Braun Breaker, the young guys coming up. As I think LA Knight just may have missed the boat because he wasn't popular until recently, and he was into his 40s. Like a lot of the talk is, well, there's a lot of people that are in their 40s that are getting big pushes, and they're still main event guys, but they were main event guys before they were 40. LA Knight started when he was into his 40s, so I think it may have a lot to do with, you know, like I said, Javon Evans, Ethan Page, Braun Breaker, maybe friggin' Jacob Fatu, but oof. But anyway,
I don't,
yeah, that's
I don't think Jacob Fatu has anything as far as a push is concerned right now.
yeah, yeah, nothing. It's although I am kind of intrigued as to what his role is in this whole. He goes to SmackDown and tells Solo that, Roman Reigns is looking for him, and Solo's like, "Fuck you." Roman wants me. He knows where to find me. So I don't know. It's almost like Jacob Fatu is a mole in this whole bloodline thing. Like he's doing it because that was the stipulation with him and Roman, but he's not. There's an ulterior motive there. I'm maybe it's just me hoping so, as opposed to him just being bloodline dude number three. But I'm curious to see what they're doing with him.
Well, if there's an ulterior motive in a situation, I think it'll pay off down the road later in the year. Like, and I'd speculate it's going to have something to do with The Rock, but
Oh
that could
God,
be that. Yeah, I'll speculate it has something to do with The Rock, but we'll figure that out after SummerSlam, I think, because those if The Rock's going to have anything to do with next year's WrestleMania, he'll show his face somewhere around the Survivor Series. So we'll
maybe
we'll,
the
we'll see
rum,
how it's going.
maybe the Rumble. You
Yeah,
know,
maybe the Rumble, and
well,
if he got
and also Elimination Chamber now is it's it used to be the big four. Now it's almost like the big five because Elimination Chamber is where a lot of shit goes down. So could be
yeah
Elimination Chamber. That's where the whole Cena turn happened, right? Was it Elimination Chamber?
yeah it was at the
Huh.
end of the Elimination Chamber. It was.
Right. Right.
Um, they used to have the big four, the Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, but then you got to throw in now the other important ones. King of the Ring is now also important because they give you a title shot at SummerSlam, and then also
Money in the
the
Bank.
Money in the Bank,
Yep.
which has been moved to the end of the year, so they can juggle things around a little bit differently. But LA Knight, yeah, he got his popularity came late in the game. He built himself outside the WWE. He ended up basically anything the WWE tried making him ended up getting scrapped, and he went back to being Eli Drake because that's the same character he is right now. The character he is right now is LA Knight is Eli Drake. So that's what worked for him. That's what's working now. That's what the crowd wants to see. He just doesn't. And another thing against him is his size. He's 6 feet and 220 pounds. He's not the biggest guy, and they still have a thing for having the bigger guys at the tippity top. So he's just not. He's the guy, but not the guy they want. Hence, they don't know what to do with him. And he's not the only one in that boat either. We kind of see that right now with Gunther. And
Don't
where the fuck's
fucking get
CM
me
Punk?
started. Don't fucking get me started with Gunther.
Where's CM
Anyway,
Punk?
I
So
just I just think he's taking time off. I'm 99.999% sure that he's going to be popping up having to do with SummerSlam somehow.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if he wasn't part of a 2 night SummerSlam, I'd be like, what's wrong with you people? Um, but after that, overall Raw was good. Thought the Miz, not the Miz, the fucking Danhausen bit was funny.
As
Um,
usual.
and now JD McDonough's got amnesia, which is kind of funny.
That was fucking
Um,
hysterical when he was shaking hands with people like he like not realizing he'd met them already. That was
yeah.
good. That was good.
So, everybody who's had their interaction with Danhausen has had some kind of a side effect. So it's interesting.
And I'll be the first one to admit that when they signed him, I thought, what the hell are they gonna do with him? Like that's gonna be a joke. It's gonna be stupid. Like what are they gonna do? Curse wrestlers as he's fighting them, and then he's gonna win because of it. But I, we one of the reels we just put out that we talked about in our last episode was, you know, is he booking himself? Because I can't imagine anybody else in that company knowing what to do with him on that level, like what he's
Somebody,
doing.
somewhat, I'm sure he has something to say in it because of how successful he was prior to the
Absolutely.
WWE. But someone in that office got to have some kind of like, yeah, veto power. And then maybe Triple H is really big on him, so that could have something to do with it. He's somebody who's a merch machine. That would be another reason why TKO is not blocking anything with him. He's a merch machine. What the fuck? I just saw him on another commercial. I'm like, that's the third commercial I've seen Danhausen on. So he's getting around and making his human monies with how they're using them. They're doing good with him. Um, The other thing I thought that was good about Raw was Chad Gable and the Alpha Academy.
That was great.
Um, I'm been wondering about the Maxine Dupree, the Maximum Dupa, when she's gonna have the heel turn. And as I've told you, I don't think they're gonna do her in the fucking Judgment Day. Judgment Day, man. I don't think they're gonna put her into the Vision anymore. But she's still gonna have a heel turn, and I'm kind of thinking somewhere along the lines, it's the heel of her shoe to Chad Gable's nuts that puts the heel turn over.
Oh, I think judging by the boos on Monday, she's she's already healed. She's not, she didn't totally jump into that, but they were booing the fuck out of her.
Yeah,
So
they were. She's gone in that direction. So I should say the official, oh my God, I can't believe she did it moment is going to have to happen.
what do you think of Lyra turning heel? I didn't I don't know, I didn't really care for that much.
Uh, it was weakly done. I thought it was weak. She should have turned heel if Bailey took the pin and had more of a reason to snap on her, not because she took the pin and then decided to go cuckoo on the whole Bailey being positive thing. Um, I just didn't dig it. I didn't really dig it at all, and it also seems like something Lyra's not into herself. You know how you can watch somebody and get a vibe off them if they're digging what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yep.
I don't think she's too into the idea of being the heel in the situation either. Plus, if you ever listen to Bailey's interviews with like Chris Van Vliet and others, she prefers being the heel. So it would have been more of a natural flow if she had turned heel here against Lyra. But
But
it's what it is.
we've seen that so many times now, Billy being a heel, and I think this is
Yeah,
the first time Lyra's been a heel.
I
So
think so. I
I'm
think
I'm
so.
I'm curious to see what her explanation is because you didn't get you didn't get anything after she turned heel because it was very, like you can't gauge like why they did it whatsoever. It was like she was pissed that she did it, and then it looked like she was good that she did it, and then she was pissed that she did it. So I'm curious to see what the friggin' explanation is. But um, going back to the Gable thing, that was easily the best segment of the night, including matches. Um, I know the whole crowd was disappointed that Otis didn't turn back, you know, and shake Gable's hand, but I know eventually that's coming. I'm just curious to see how they get to that. And Maxine Dupree, I think it seemed like they were, getting her ready to be in the Vision,
Yeah,
and then like eventually they were just like, oh no, you know what? This freaking El Grande Americano slash Chad Gable shit's, got some traction. Let's switch it. And honestly, I was expecting Chad Gable to just see them how he did like Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee, where he just saw them backstage and was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I was a fucking asshole." That's what I was expecting with Alpha Academy. I was just expecting them to see them and just be like, "Hey, I'm sorry," and then they just freaking hug and whatever. But I'm glad they like actually saw that there was, drawing power in that whole story.
I think we'll get from that is how do you get Otis and Tozawa to side up with Chad Gable again? Is the Creeds? Because remember, the Creeds were the ones that Gable left Alpha Academy for, and then they're the ones that were under the mask with him for the whole El Grande Americano experiment.
Yeah.
So, the Creeds, while he's on his little apology tour right now, I could see the Creeds kicking his ass, and the ones that have to come help him are going to be Otis and Tozawa.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'd be pretty happy if they did like incorporate the creeds and something like that, as opposed to just like sweeping them under the carpet and just forgetting about them, which is probably more likely if you
That's
think
more
about
like
it.
what's gonna. It's more likely what's gonna happen.
right.
So
But I mean, I think they're good enough to compete in the tag division. I mean, what they have of the tag division, um, they'd be a good opponent for the Street Profits. Not saying they should win the tag titles, but they wouldn't be bad.
no, I think actually they would have some good matches with the Profits. The other thing about Raw was the Liv Morgan Io Sky situation. Um, so people started panicking. It looked like Liv got hurt over the weekend. I saw the video a few times between her and Ruka. I don't think she's hurt. I don't. I don't think she has some kind of injury that's going to keep her out. Um, so that said, they have their match. Io and her have the match. Io's definitely winning at the Queen and Reign. She'll take that thing and then go on to challenge Liv Morgan and then not win. What I would be doing, excuse me, go on to challenge Liv Morgan at SummerSlam and lose to her at SummerSlam. I actually would have Io Sky win the Queen in the Ring and challenge Rhea Ripley. But
Definitely.
that's just me. That's how I would book it. I'd have her challenge Rhea, and then, you know, it makes sense mathematically because Rhea's never beat Io. So Io could be playing the card that that's the direction she wants to go. She's got Rhea's number. She's going to win the title. And then Rhea can beat her at SummerSlam and finally get a win. So that's how I do it. But I heard some rumor that Rhea's hurt again too. So
No, she is. That's she hasn't been on TV. She is hurt. Again.
what happened now? Was she fucking burn her
I
hair or something with crying?
I forgot what happened. Like, I hear that she's injured, and I'm like, motherfucker, really again? But then I'm like, all right, I'm not even gonna bother. So, but I don't thinking SummerSlam 2 nights.
Yeah,
The marquee matchup would be Io versus Rhea,
yeah,
but they got to start fucking stroking each other again on camera, where they're hugging and kissing and all that stupid bullshit, which I don't want to fucking deal with again. You know how I feel about that shit.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's save our predictions for after this week. Um, and speaking of the Raw thing, looking back on it, Raw started in '93,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
if you think about how long Raw's been on and how little Hulk Hogan was a part of that show.
Well, I mean, this gets us right into it. Let's see. What's notable Hulk Hogan Raw moments? That whole thing where Vince McMahon did the interview with him where he was thinking about retiring.
Yep.
I can't think of any other Raw moments before he went to WCW. I mean, afterwards, obviously, there are quite a few Raw moments for
Oh, he
Hulk.
briefly going into the King of the Ring '93. He had the title between WrestleMania 9 and then. So he had his brief appearances on Monday Night Raw then, but that was it.
Right.
Um, the biggest moments I can think of Hogan on Raw, the one that pops to mind for me right away is the NWO showing up.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, and seeing them, the original three NWO members show up on Raw was huge. Um, which of course leads into, the setup for, excuse me, the setup for Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 18, which, in my opinion, is Hogan's greatest match.
You mean as far as like two workers or everything?
Everything,
See,
literally the whole nine.
I still got to go Hogan Andre just because of what it meant.
Well, which one? WrestleMania 3?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
What the fuck other one would it be?
Shea Stadium, 1980. It's
No,
actually It's a
No.
better match than the WrestleMania 3.
Yes, it is, but no, no, no.
Hogan
As
versus Hogan and Andre on Superstars, or what was it called when we were kids in 1979 and 80?
either All-Star Wrestling or Championship Wrestling, one
Yeah,
of the two.
championship wrestling, the way they meet, and Hogan lays Andre out with the Hogan hammer, the loaded
Yeah,
forearm, and
I remember they
with
like
it.
it was funny too because like they did the whole thing with McMahon standing near the ring and they like squared off with each other and they're like, yeah, right now. Hulk's like, right now, let's do it right now. And Hogan and Andre's like, I'll get you in the ring right now. And like, and then they cut. There's another frame, and it's a filled arena, like filled whatever it was, a VFW, whatever the fuck it was they filmed back then. It was filled, and they were gonna have the match, and it was like, how the fuck did they get, you know, that whole place filled in 30 seconds, you know? But like, it was
Yeah,
obvious that it was pre-recorded, and they just didn't give a shit how they were presenting it. But yeah, I remember he busted Andre open.
yep.
Yeah, that was the. But no, that's WrestleMania 3 is the just because of the drama leading up to it and just throughout the match. I mean, I know, if you're just looking at it from two workers, that's on the Meltzer scale, it's probably like a 2.3. But when you consider the drama and the build up and what it meant and what Andre was and how the WWE portrayed that undefeated, never been slammed thing, and to have that come to fruition in that match, that was still to this day the greatest WrestleMania moment of all time, without a doubt.
It's got to be up there. I mean, if not number one, two, it's in the top three. Thinking about what else has happened at the
It's
biggest
fucking
wrestling.
number one, dude. It's number
Eh,
one.
you know, Hogan slamming Andre and all. Yeah, it is. I give it number one. It's the most probably the one that most people will go to. Uh, but the other one that's got to be right up there with it is Hogan getting turned by the crowd against The Rock at WrestleMania 18. When they
Yes,
when they lock up and Hogan tosses The Rock across the ring, they go ape shit. And
dude.
then
No, go ahead.
one of the loudest pops, I'd argue, in wrestling history is when Hogan hulks up against The Rock after The Rock bottom.
That was my friend called me during that match, and he was
Mhm.
like, Are you watching WrestleMania?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't started yet." He's like, "Wait till you watch Rock and Hogan." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're gonna love it." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Oh yeah." And I can hear like through the phone on his TV the people going fucking apeshit over it because I wasn't really into Rock Hogan because I wanted Stone Cold and Hogan.
I think most people wanted that at the time. And I thought
Yeah.
The Rock Hogan was the ultimate match. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't buy what Stone Cold said where like he didn't think it would be a good match. I just think he didn't really care for Hogan, but he just didn't want to come out and say it. But anyway, that's another
Uh,
conversation.
no, nobody, nope. Pump your brakes because I agree. Um, I agree because if you go look at Stone Cold cut promos in ECW, Hogan was one of his main attacks
Well,
because
but I
he
mean
felt.
at that point Hogan was like low hanging fruit. I mean, he was easy to attack, you know?
Well, it's also had to do with Austin's, you know, cut from WCW. He says that he at that time he's like, "I allowed to do with Dusty and Hogan." So there could be legit reasons between why Austin didn't want to work with fucking Austin didn't want to work with Hogan. It's also a matter of who was going to win and lose. Maybe go back to that situation. Austin didn't want to lose. Hence he didn't lose to Scott Hall. Nobody wanted to lose to the NWO guys. But that's detracting from the Rock match. The match was great. Okay, the two of them had an excellent match. Um, the crowd is insane. The natural turn of Hogan, where they had to change the finish and everything, and it's that doesn't happen much in wrestling. You can
Thank you,
count it
Pat
on one hand
Patterson. Thank you, Pat Patterson. By the way,
for the change.
just booking that whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great move. So I've considered that I consider that Hogan's greatest match, and I understand the Andre WrestleMania 3. I wouldn't consider that one of Hogan's greatest matches. I would actually consider that though one of the most important matches in wrestling history in a different category.
Just like I said, the drama involved, like throughout the match, because Andre's quote unquote undefeated.
Yeah,
You know, and I remember you. I'm everybody remembers it who saw it. Hogan tried to body slam Andre in the first couple seconds of the match.
almost lost.
Yeah, Andre fell on top of him, and me and my friends were screaming at the TV, "That was three! That was three!" But yeah, that's the big. I mean, we could just do a whole friggin' episode on Hogan's WrestleMania moments, for Christ's
Yeah,
sake.
we could. As far as this brother episode is concerned, I remember that very well too when I watched WrestleMania 3, and I'm one of those people who's like, he just lost.
Yeah, yep.
I was one of those people who's like that, and that was one of if we had to make a list of false finishes in wrestling history, it's got to be in there.
That that could have been like the first ever false finish. You know?
Could be. If we're going to dig into it, stuff that's memorable, yeah. Um, but I thought, we have a different opinion on what his best match is. For me, his second best match would probably be him versus the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6, which I'm going to think we're going to have a difference of opinion on that based on the Hogan Rock 18 status.
I would say that Rock Hogan, Warrior Hogan, Andre Hogan are all in the conversation for Hogan's best match ever.
Okay.
For different reasons. Like Rock Hogan, you know, it was more the work than Andre Hogan was. But it was also that turn midway through the match as well.
Yeah.
For Hogan Warrior, you know, as much as people talk shit about Hogan's work in the ring in America, he got one of the best matches of all time out of the Ultimate fucking Warrior.
Yeah, he did. No, that's one of the best. That's probably the Warriors' second best match. And
Macho Man?
yeah, him and Macho Man in WrestleMania 7, number one for the Ultimate
Yep.
Warrior.
Yeah.
That was an excellent match.
Two guys,
And
two guys that got great matches out of him.
yeah, yeah, but well, we're on the Hogan and the Hulkster
Yeah.
and his WrestleMania 6. I didn't expect that. What I expected at WrestleMania 6 was a slow, boring, you know, two muscle heads smacking each other match. Um, but we got a well scripted babyface versus babyface move for move match for the most part. They did switch it up a little bit once the thing was about halfway through, but both got their stuff in, and it was a good back and forth. You know, no real missed spots. Pace was good. There's really nothing you can say bad about that match.
Yep. Yep. And for the work in the ring, Hogan Andre's probably last among those, Rock Hogan, Hogan Warrior, Hogan Andre. As far as the match itself, Andre Hogan's probably last.
Yeah, 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 probably, yeah. Actually, it's not probably. I'd say it is.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, when we're looking at like my five top Hogan matches of all time, we're going to be different from yours. But I'd have, you know, I got him versus Macho Man Randy Savage at Madison Square Garden
Yes.
in 1985 when they met for the first time.
Yep.
That match is great.
Better than the WrestleMania 5 match.
It is. That's why I picked it. If I was like, man, I should make a list and matches that are the best. And I'm like, well, how many people know this match? It's like, you know what? Get on the internet and find it.
Right.
Um, Savage Hogan at the Garden was an excellent match. Again, um, I just watched it yesterday because of it. It's just fucking great match. Better than what they did at WrestleMania 5.
Yep.
Showed what Hogan could do. Showed how hot the crowd was for Hogan then. How much heat was on the Macho Man. I mean, at that point in time, anybody that stuck in the ring against Hogan got extra heat. It just seemed like because of them being against Hogan. Savage was already a top heel, a top mid card heel at that point, but it's still before he got the IC title. It's still within his first 6 months in the company, and they put him in there with Hogan, and the crowd hates him even more than they already did, just for sticking him in the ring with Hogan and beating Hogan with the countout.
There was that small part of people that were, you know, they were already sick of Hogan and they were into Macho Man. But Macho Man was such a dick as a heel
Mm-hmm.
that he got over as such when he fought Hogan at the Garden.
Yeah, yeah, it helps. You know, he got so heavily over as a heel, people wanted to boo him. And
Yeah,
then,
he
got
it's interesting that because like by the time WrestleMania 5 happened,
yeah,
you can I mean, I don't know about you because I got a few years on you, but by that time, because there's always that age where you realize, you know what, maybe this isn't real, you know?
hmm
But so like WrestleMania 5, it was like as soon as as soon as Macho Man turned on Hogan on that Saturday night's main event, it was like, oh, okay, so this is gonna set up WrestleMania. Macho Man's gonna go into it being the champ, and Hogan's gonna beat him. I was already starting like, you're already starting to see that pattern
yeah,
develop.
yep,
So that took away from the match a little bit, but it was still cool to. I mean, I went to that one, so it was still cool to see it live. But still, it was like, oh yeah, okay, just what I suspected. And we got a lot of that with. I mean, I don't know. Did you think that like Morocco was going to beat Hogan or Mass Superstar was going to beat Hogan or
no, no, I didn't. I didn't think anyone would beat Hogan
right,
at that point. No, no, of course. Actually, at that point, I was glad to see the Masked Superstar beat the hell out of him, but
right,
he didn't win. I knew he wouldn't win. No, the only people who ever thought were a threat to Hogan in his first Hulkamania run with the WWF, Andre at WrestleMania 3.
yeah,
He was a threat. The Warrior when he did, again at WrestleMania 6. Um, and Big John Studd when Studd first came back with Bobby the Brain Heenan at the Garden. That was another one. I was like, oh, somebody who could beat this guy.
right.
But of course he didn't. And I was more into that too because of Heenan. Heenan showing up as Studd's manager instantly connected him to the Hulkamania from the AWA days. And I'm not sure how well people followed the AWA in the Northeast, but Heenan and Hogan go way back, all the way back to Hogan's return to wrestling after Rocky 3, when he showed up in the AWA originally as a heel. Then he body slams Jerry Blackwell, the slam heard around the world, and he's a babyface and goes into his programs against the Heenan family, which ties into one of what I think is one of Hogan's greatest matches. It's Hogan versus Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA Championship in April of '83, right before he leaves at the end of the year to head over to the WWE.
That was the last time where it was like, okay, you're not giving me the title. You're fucking me out of my merch money. Vince is promising me the world. I'm out.
That
And
is the Yeah, go ahead.
and well, I'm gonna get into something deeper. So go ahead.
Well, that's the match where Vern Gagne ruined his chances for the AWA to become the big company because of the booking with Hogan. And Hogan wins the title in that match only to have it stripped of him because of a DQ. And the whole audience is mad, and that's it, and off he goes. That's the end of it. And he goes and sits home with a paycheck from Vince McMahon instead of finishing his dates with the AWA to go start up with Hulkamania in January of '84.
Yeah, I remember watching that broadcast. Like when Backlund went to the backstage area, I was like, "Who's he gonna bring out?" When
Mm-hmm.
Hulk came out, man, I popped
You know,
big time.
when Hogan came out, I was like, "Holy shit!" Um, before we veer off what I was off at the AWA thing with Bockwinkel, Nick Bockwinkel and Bobby the Brain need to get a lot of credit for the early days of Hulkamania
Absolutely.
because that's who Hogan chased. The Dusty Rhodes booking. Bockwinkel's the heel and Hogan's the babyface chasing him, and everyone we want to see him catch him and get him. Um, and Heenan fortunately was able to take that magic that he had with Hogan and transfer it over to the WWF when he came in, and continue to be a thorn in Hogan's side.
Yeah, and you when you hear shoots with Bobby Heenan and to a lesser degree Hulk Hogan, they both speak fondly of each other because they were just, I mean, that feud, if you want to call it that, lasted for years and years. So
His entire career, really, if you think
yeah,
about it, because even when Hogan went,
other than Piper.
yeah, Holland and Piper, right? Because that's another one. Could do all kinds of Hulkamania lists. You could do a Hogan's greatest opponents, Hogan's greatest matches, so on and so forth. Because
Hogan's greatest lies.
I don't.
Yeah,
We don't have enough recording time.
really,
We don't
really.
have enough. There's not enough recording time for the embellishing of the Hulkamania. So what were you going to get on about the Hulkster after I brought up the AWA?
The fact that the dude's had so many different peaks of his career.
Yeah.
Like he started in WWF. He was a heel, Andre,
Yep.
undercard of that Shea Stadium night with Bruno and Larry Zbyszko.
Yep.
Goes away, starts Hulkamania in the AWA, comes back to WWE, it explodes, goes away to WCW, starts the NWO, explodes there again, comes back to the WWE, wins the world title, wins the tag team title, fights Brock Lesnar, fights Kurt Angle, fights The Rock. He There has never been somebody who's had that many peaks in their career. Like
Good point.
from the late 70s or very early 80s into the early 2000s. He had he had peaks where he was on top.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And
Like you can't say that about Stone Cold, Andre, Flair may be the only one in contention of that because he was on top uh, for a really long time, but Hogan with the merch and the exposure in New York as opposed to Georgia and North Carolina, whatever the fuck it was. But yeah, there's nobody that's had that many peaks where they were like the big bosses of the company as much as Hogan as well.
so then, what do you think was Hogan's best run? The WWF or the WCW run?
WWF, Hulkamania.
Yeah.
That was, laying the groundwork for everything that came after it. He had his shitty movies, but without those shitty movies, would The Rock have gone on to be Dwayne Johnson, Hollywood star? Would Stone Cold get movies? Would John Cena get movies if it wasn't for Hulk doing fucking Mr. Nanny or Santa with muscles
Um.
10 years before that?
Yeah, because I think the Rock's one is just. If we're gonna get into the which wrestler broke to Hollywood, broke into Hollywood and kept it going. Um, you could say Hogan because of Rocky 3, but
Yeah,
I'm actually would be pointing my finger at Dwayne Johnson because he got that role in Scorpion King, and then from there his movie career took over, and his wrestling career, you know, died off. Hogan never got the chance to get his movie career, his TV show career in a position where he could walk away from wrestling. You know,
right,
um, and when I think of Hogan and anything Hollywood related to Hogan, not Hollywood Hogan, but films, I instantly think of Rocky 3, which is even before he got the Hulkamania thing going. So,
right,
but with The Rock, I'm one of those people now. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, he wrestled. You know,
right. Yeah, that's like I said. I mean, if when Hogan was doing movies, I'm sure the studios were like, "Oh, he's just a knuckleheaded wrestler. Nobody's gonna buy that shit."
hmm
But when Dwayne Johnson came along, yeah, you know, I mean, let's face it. Who looks more like a leading man in Hollywood, Hulk Hogan or The Rock?
The Rock does,
Yeah,
but
totally.
you know, we crap on Hogan's movies, but there's the movie, the one he did with Christopher Lloyd was actually kind of good. It was Commander, Space
Oh,
Commander, the one,
Suburban Commando. Yeah, that was pretty
Suburban
good.
Commando. That one was all right. And then actually, as far as if you look at what it was supposed to be, Mr. Nanny isn't a bad movie because of what it's supposed to be. It's a fucking kids movie. So, the people who hate it, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm going to go watch it because I'm not going to sit down and watch it. But the concept, it was a kids movie. So if it's a kids movie, it falls into the category of what it's supposed to do. I don't see why people need to bash on it, other than just saying, look at Hogan in a tutu. Because The Rock ended up doing the same thing later down the road. It was a Tooth Fairy,
Yep.
and then you know you could say the same thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger in some of the kids movies he's made, like Kindergarten Cop. So
Yeah, the di
this
the difference was, you know, Arnold making Kindergarten Cop and Rock doing Tooth Fairy is when Hogan did his movies, they were for smaller companies, and Rock, for instance, was, you know, whatever big gigantic friggin' movie studio it was. So
yeah, he just he,
again,
he got to take off.
yeah, that's Hogan laying the groundwork, He paved the road.
Um, since we always speak about Hulkamania, um, do you think back in 1984 Vince McMahon could have turned wrestling into what he did without Hulk Hogan?
No,
Yeah, neither do I.
no. I mean, I know there was, talk of like he wanted Dusty
Yeah,
to be the guy, but would Dusty have come up with, train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins, you know, shit like that? I mean, like, I think Hogan brought that type of intensity, and he was different in the sense that before he was always classified in that giant type of wrestler, where it was,
yeah,
the new guy that was coming after Andre. You Killer Khan, Don Leo Jonathan, Bundy, Stud, Hogan. He was part of that. And up to that point, none of those types of wrestlers would win world titles.
true.
So when Hogan won it, it was, it was precedent setting, and just the intensity that he brought with, like, could you picture Dusty fucking Rhodes tearing the t-shirt off his body, throwing it in the crowd?
No, it'd be a completely different concept. We'd still get the American Dream that you saw down in Crockett Promotions, but on a WWE level. But no, I can't. I'm not taking anything away from Dusty. He's one of my favorites of all time.
Totally.
But he couldn't be the guy that was in Hogan's shoes. Like It's a different animal. Oh,
No,
Hogan got
yeah, totally. Like, it's completely different. I mean, just like if Dusty Rhodes tore his T-shirt off, you'd see, you know, as much as I love fucking Dusty and he is one of the all-time greats, you'd see a blubbery dude tearing his T-shirt off,
yeah.
as opposed to Hulk, who's fucking oiled up, ripped. He tears his T-shirt off, and I remember like when I first saw him tear the T-shirt, I was like, yeah, son of a bitch, tear that T-shirt off. I was into it, totally marked out. I mean, I was 12, 13 years old, and then like I remember years later, Jesse Ventura was like, "Oh yeah, tearing the T-shirt off, what a feat of strength," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. That's not that big of a deal. It's just a fucking T-shirt."
Yeah.
But it's
A pre-cut T-shirt too.
yeah, right, exactly, because you couldn't tear that collar.
Yep.
But yeah, he I think he did shit that tapped into quote unquote Americana a lot more than Dusty would have been able to. And that's not a knock on Dusty, but Dusty was a wrestler who could get over in the wrestling arena. Hogan was able to transcend wrestling and get into pop culture. And again, I don't know if Vince McMahon would be able to do that with Dusty. You never know, but I don't think so.
I think if Dusty was the guy, this is what plays out in my head. We gotta just insert Dusty in there against the Iron Sheik instead of Hogan, and we're still gonna get the same kind of reaction when Dusty wins because it's Americana taking over, taking out the evil foreign villain. And Dusty does it and goes on, and they do the same thing with Dusty. They have a new guy come in every month to find him at the Garden, so he gets over. But there comes a point where a lot of Hogan's early matches come from his previous brushings with guys. Like they brought everybody from the AWA that worked good with Hogan, except
Yep.
Bockwinkel. Heenan comes in, David Schultz comes in, and these guys who are early on people fighting with Hogan. Paul Orndorff comes over. Dusty back then, the guys he was known to feud with, like Bruiser Brody or Abdul the Butcher, Holly Rice, they're not going to be coming into the WWF at that point in time and drawing like Hogan could draw with his superhero type character. Um, Hogan could talk faster than Dusty with more bravado. Dusty could talk. Dusty can outtalk Hogan on the mic, but Hogan's speeches carried more weight, more attention, and it connected with kids. Vince McMahon was going after younger audience too at that point. Remember? So he was changing the whole game. I don't think Dusty would be able to connect with little kids like a superhero character like Hogan could because of just the type of personalities he portrayed in the ring. Um, and also when we talk about Hulk and what he was doing, there is the thing that Vince would have done it with superstar Billy Graham if Billy Graham wasn't as old and hurt as he was.
Right.
And Hogan basically could fill the Billy Graham shoes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Brother,
superstar Billy Graham, that's a whole different topic. But I just,
brother.
like I said, I wonder who came up with train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, who came up with carrying a t-shirt, all the shit that we associate with Hogan.
Hogan's
Um,
the T-shirt tear is Hogan. He did that in the AWA.
right. Yep. See,
So that's
right.
got to be his idea. The training to say your prayers, eating your vitamins thing. I'd actually probably, unless I heard him say it in the AWA, I'm going to say Vince McMahon came up with that.
That could have been, it could have been a brainstorming thing. I mean, it was definitely both of them that created, not created, but took Hulkamania to where it could have, should have, and could have been. But
The two of them took the wrestling industry into a stratosphere that it wasn't going to be in without the two of them teaming up.
right. like it was the thing was it was there in Minnesota, but it was Minnesota. Like once he went to everybody says New York, but it's Connecticut. Once he went to New York slash Connecticut, he Vince was able to, you know, since it was New York slash Connecticut, he was able to get into that pop culture transcending from wrestling. Like we talked about this earlier, the friggin' Sports Illustrated cover, the Right Guard commercial, hosting Saturday Night Live. Vern Gagne was never going to be able to do all that shit.
No, no, that wasn't definitely not in Vern Gagne's playbook. No, going to New York was the best thing for Hogan. Um, and where it launched. Oh yeah, and then, don't forget about the Z Morning Zoo and the phone book tearing.
Right, right. I'm sure there's lots more we uh that we don't. Well, I mean, just get in a Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling cartoon.
Yeah,
Um,
the connection with Cindy Lauper, Captain Lou, and then you know, and Mr. T. All that. The Rock and Wrestling, the the Hollywood connection with Mr. T, all helped build what would become WrestleMania and continue to launch things in the direction that Vince McMahon wanted to go with Hogan.
but I remember that too when Mr. T jumped on the ring apron to help Hogan. That was another
Yeah,
huge fucking mark out moment for me because I was big time into the A Team too, and
yeah, it
Mr.
was one of
T
my
at the
favorite
time.
shows.
Yeah, yeah. When he jumped on the ring and he went to help Hogan, oh man, that was a big one. Yeah. So that's people listen to this or the reels that we're gonna post, they're probably gonna be like, "Oh, guys are such marks for Hogan. It's disgusting." Hopefully, we're like shedding a little more insight as to how important the dude was to wrestling and why a lot of things still exist based on what he did today and why we're watching wrestling, podcasting, whatever.
Well, the marking on Hogan thing, I'm not a Hogan mark, but I'm Hogan. I appreciate and understand and respect everything Hogan did in the business. I mean, you want to talk about marks? I'll probably mark over Ric Flair before Hogan, and when it comes down to that term, but um, wrestling wouldn't be where it is without Hogan. And when he passed away, I was actually fucking bummed
Yep.
because just like when Ozzy died and Ace, when all three of them died, a small piece of my childhood went with them because of how connected they were to certain areas of my fucking childhood. And Hogan being gone, first thing I thought about was he is why I was watching Saturday wrestling on the WWF because that his popularity got that fucking show good time slots for me to watch it. Wasn't having to stay up in the middle of the night, sneak it on. I got to watch wrestling because of him. Plus, my stepdad was a Hogan fan, so anytime the shit came on the Garden Network back home, we'd get to watch it. So Hogan is between him and Vince McMahon, they're the two most important figures in wrestling history. And then, as far as where we are today and how it got.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And you know, we didn't talk about, which we need to talk about, is arguably, I know you're going Andre, but not best match, possibly his most important match was versus the Iron Sheik when he got the title. Because that's where it all takes off. You know, Still to this day, one of the loudest pops in wrestling history
Dude,
when Hogan pinned the Sheik.
I'm gonna tell the story quick. I may have told it to you. Um, every Christmas for a few years, When my aunts would ask me what I want for Christmas, I would say, you know, tickets to wrestling at Madison Square Garden.
Hmm.
And it was December 25th, 1983. I got my wrestling tickets, Bob Backlund versus the Sheik. The
Hmm.
next day, it was on December 26th, 83. And because, the foreign heel would never win a world championship during that time. It was just fodder for the baby face to go over. You go back to Ivan Koloff, but other than that, Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Ivan Koloff again against Backlund. The foreign dude would never win. Um, and then when Backlund tried to do those clubs on TV and got hurt, I thought, maybe nah, still can't have somebody like the Sheik win. So my aunt and I went December 26th. We watched the match. Sheik won. We were both like, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening. And then maybe the match after that, Howard Finkel would announce the following month's card at Madison Square Garden.
Hmm.
And he announced the rematch, Backlund versus the Sheik. And there'd be an intermission, and it would be like, tickets are on sale now at the Garden box office while during the intermission. And even my aunt was like, "Oh man, we got to get tickets for that because it's going to be, the rematch when Backlund gets it back." Little did we know, Hulk Hogan was going to replace Backlund, and my first thought was just like the foreign wrestlers, the Giants would never win titles either.
Right.
Ernie Ladd, Stud, all of them, they would never win titles. Well, Stud was after that, but so she got the tickets, fifth row, fifth fucking row, January 23rd, 1984. I've never, with all the concerts I've been to and sporting events, dude, there has never been a pop I've heard louder than that for any live event ever. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was
So,
insane. I mean, it's not like I can forget about it. I could go on YouTube right now and watch and hear it again.
right.
But I remember when I saw, because I wasn't there for the live show, but that next Saturday on wrestling,
Yep.
that was all it was about. Was they showed the match, the fucking well, under what was it, 5 minutes and 34 seconds or something like that of
Yep.
Hogan and Hogan coming out, the whole match played. I was like, wow. I remember being again, I was never the biggest Hulkamaniac, but I remember being excited as fuck as a little kid watching Hogan pin the Sheik because of how much I hated the Iron Sheik.
Right.
Uh, and even when we're talking about Sheik Backlund, I remember being shocked that the Sheik won too. When I saw that
Yeah.
the highlights of that, I was like, he won?
Yep.
Really? What the fuck? So I was surprised he won. And then not only that he won, when I finally did go see the match in its entirety down the road, I was like, Backlund basically gets his ass kicked in the match. So, the Sheik beat him. He just like to beat him. And I was also like, why is the Sheik sweating so much? And Backlund looks like he's in a freezer. And looking back on it now, I was like, oh right. The Iron Sheik like to keep himself warm with some of that powder. Yeah.
Bali
He's sweating
Bali.
his ass. Yeah, Bali, he's sweating his ass off. Um, and again, without am I saying it again too much when there's nothing again about it. The fucking without the Sheik, there is no Hulkamania at that point. Because if Hogan did that to say, I don't think it would have had the same effect. Let me say it like that. You got the foreign heel everybody hated, and Hogan comes in and takes the title off of him. Everybody can go super duper ape shit. But go back and listen to Hogan beat Bockwinkel for the title in the AWA. The crowd goes absolutely fucking bananas, but it's still not the same pop that they got at the guard.
Right. Right. Well, a lot of that too is we've talked about this in the past too, where Hogan wasn't new to the WWF when he came back and beat the Sheik,
Yep.
but it was a new version of Hogan. So he was still on, he was still rising at that time.
Yeah.
That's when people most go nuts over wrestlers when they're on the rise.
Yeah,
Once they get there, they hate them. When they're on the rise, everybody loves them. And that was Hogan because he was, it was like a month. He didn't go through a bunch of friggin' jobber matches against Baron Mikel Cicluna or Johnny Rods or whoever. It was like, okay, he mixed it up with the Samoans and now he's in the title match.
yeah, straight to it, right into the title match. Um, Belts on him and off and running to have him become what is really the last dynasty champion for the WWF. Well, I know someone's like Roman Reigns had it. Yeah, I know Roman Reigns had it, but Hogan was the last one of how they did it at that time. For all you folks out there who have no idea when 1985 was, when Hogan got the belt in '84, excuse me, with you people who just think the '80s or some AI meme on social media, when Hogan got the belt in '84 and that 4 year run he has all the way through to '88, that's how world champions were back then. You had title holders that held their belts for years because they were champion, and it was hard to take a title off champion. Bruno Sammartino is the king. No one's ever going to reach him. Um, Hogan had his 4 years. Backlund had it 4 years. Morales 2 years, year and a half for Superstar, and he happens to be like one of the shorter ones. But the point was that if a champion had a title, you knew they were going to have it for a while. Even over in the NWA, Harley Race had that belt forever. When he would lose that belt, he lost it for a week to maybe 5 months at the most, and the belt's back on him for a year plus. There was stability in championships. I was
I'm
actually quite pleased they did it with Roman Reigns. It's about time they did something like that. But, Hogan's the last guy of that ilk because after that, we started getting annual title changes.
um yeah, I mean Macho Man had it for like a year.
Yep.
I mean Honky Tonk, but that's IC.
Yeah. Warrior had it less than a year. Sergeant Slaughter was a transitional champ.
Yeah.
Yokozuna, uh, Hogan and Yokozuna, it was retarded. Um, Yokozuna only had about a year. Bret Hart had it less than a year. And then Diesel had it less than a year. Shawn Michaels less than a year. Everybody at that point's under a year until JBL. JBL breaks a year with the title. Then John Cena comes along. He has it 2.5 years. And then again, we're back to the whole thing with no one has it more than a year. None of Triple H's title reigns lasted over a fucking year. And
Nope.
nobody else at that point. The next time they finally have a champion who has the belt for, as the kids say today, a minute, it's Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and
And
you think about all the all-time greats, Mick Foley, Stone Cold, Undertaker, Rock, none of them held it for, I mean, it was a different time. Like we're going from an hour a week on Saturday to, you know, 4 hours between Raw and SmackDown. So I know Hogan said this quite a bit too, like the wars move faster now, you know.
they
So
do. They do.
I
Because now,
I get that, but there's still the prestige in holy shit, this dude's had the title for 4 years. So even though Roman, a lot of people rip him because, on an average, what did he defend his title like once every 2 to 3 months,
yeah,
if that.
something like
But
that. But,
still, to have a company invest their big name status on you says a lot.
oh, it does. But you just made a great point about why I don't look at Roman's 4 year run as one of those dynasty runs. Hogan was in the Garden every month defending the title for that 4 years.
Right?
There's always something going on. He was always defending the title. The title went on the line and if it wasn't a title match, it was a tag title match. There was a tag match. Somehow every month Hogan was at the Garden on TV on Saturday night's main event, and then when the pay-per-views came along, he was on the pay-per-views. So there was a champion who was constantly seen and defending the title, not a champion who won the title, took 6 months off, defended the belt, took 3 months off, defended the belt, like that. Yeah, Roman had it for 4 years, but Roman didn't have it in the same capacity that the champions of yesteryear did, where they defended all the time and they had to travel around and do the things they did. So, you know, and
And and let's not forget too that when Roman Reigns was champ, there were no house shows.
right, yeah,
And with Bruno, where you can make a case for Hogan, you know, not over Bruno, but to give Hogan even more credibility, Bruno would defend the title in, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Boston, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, up and down the East Coast. Hogan would defend the title in fucking Ohio, Tennessee, Los Angeles, Texas, Oregon. He was all over the freaking country. So that's where
yeah.
that's where the credibility of Hogan, you know, was even more credible. That was a stupid
Oh
way to put
well,
it, but you know what I mean.
I'd argue the opposite point on that. I'd say Hogan's more like Roman Reigns in the end with that one because he traveled around. This is at the point when Vince McMahon took over and he broke everything out of the Northeast, and now we got the WWF everywhere. So Hogan's going to travel everywhere with the title and invade the other territories so that Vince can, put the stamp on that he did. Bruno, on the other hand, every every match he had was a title match. It's the Garden, it's MSG, it's the Sunnyside Gardens, it's the Garden Grove, it's the Ridgewood Grove Arena, it's Jersey, Newark, Meadowlands, Connecticut. Every fucking gymnasium, local boxing hall, or major arena that Bruno was in, it was a title match. So he's got a lot more defenses under his reign. So his long title reign has got more, you know, this is what a champion does, stability than even Hogan. But Hogan's, I'm not pissing on Hogan's at all because again, every time I saw Hogan wrestling, the title was on the line, even though it wasn't every single day. It was on the line. Any fucking time he was on Saturday Night's Main Event, he's wrestling with somebody. Even you brought up Morocco. Remember on Saturday Night's Main Event, he had the belt on the line against Morocco, and that's how they set up WrestleMania 2 with
Yep.
Bundy coming out and Morocco holding Hogan in the corner. Da, 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 stuttering prick. Holding Hogan in the corner so Bundy could crush his ribs. They made a huge story out of that.
Oh yeah, I remember he
And then
he
they
he
got,
going up to WrestleMania 2. He was built under 300 pounds, and they were showing him working out with his ribs wrapped.
yep,
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
what a big deal it was that with Bundy. And then they rehashed that storyline again with Earthquake a couple years later. And actually, I think the Earthquake angle was better. But yeah,
Nobody saw it coming,
no,
especially for you're still young and you're like, wait, who's this big fat guy? Like, oh shit, wait, what? Really? He just did that? Like, yeah, Earthquake was good. And I think he was like, I think they said he was like 26 when he first debuted. Dude looked like he was 40.
and don't you love that? How guys back when we were kids look like men in their 20s look like they were in their 50s.
Yeah. Yep.
Something in the water. It's something in the water that's pickling us all. Um, yeah, John Tenta. The thing about Tenta was also another legit guy, Earthquake.
Oh yeah.
Um, before he got sidetracked, he was a legitimate sumo wrestler in Japan, the real
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
So, and so he can move. He knew flexible. And when they brought him in and had him lay out an already dying Andre the Giant, I was like, they're gonna do something with this guy. And I just didn't expect it to be the Hogan angle, but yeah,
And
he was a believable heel.
and that was another thing about Dusty probably not working is part of Hulk Hogan's thing was getting these big giants that he could slay.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that would, that theme would have worked with Dusty. Dusty probably would have had, you know, better matches from bell to bell, but that wasn't the that wasn't the goal. You know,
It was kind of
it was to keep making Hogan look bigger and better than these giants that are coming after him.
yeah, he was the hero. Hogan was the hero. He's the wrestling hero. The newly defined wrestling superhero was Hulk Hogan. That's why everything around him was so, larger than life.
Yep.
Uh, um, I know, and his WWF run to me was the run. I didn't like him in WCW. I did like the NWO. I thought the Hollywood Hogan thing was great, and
Outstanding.
basically cut and paste Thunder Lips, and he's Hollywood Hogan, and was great. But I didn't care for him in WCW with the red and yellow. We've talked about this on the side. It's like he's for me, he didn't fit there. That
Dungeon
was
and
that
Doom
was
shit. Yeah.
yeah. That I didn't like any of the rehashing of stuff they already did from the
Nope.
WWF run. None of that worked for me. His when I think of him in WCW, I think NWO. We just skip over the little red and yellow run he had,
No.
and yeah, in the
No.
WCW,
No. No. Because without that yellow and red run in WCW,
yeah.
we wouldn't have gotten the Yeti.
Oh God, you know the Yeti and the guy who was it that played him, Reese from
Reese.
fucking
Yeah.
yeah. S- Someone should find the kids that jumped him in the locker room and wrapped him in toilet paper, and he should assault them for that toilet papering. My God, it was such a fucking bad thing. The
Dude,
whole thing with
he
Hogan.
didn't fucking book it.
I know, man. It's a joke.
It wasn't his fucking fault. I wonder whose thought that was, and like, did they tell him like, you know what, you get behind Hogan and act like you're fucking him in the ass.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. The other
Yeah.
thing was ridiculous. Everything that transpired with Hogan and his 94 through 96 run in WCW, borderlines on ridiculous, with the exception of two fucking matches for me. One is when he fought Vader at Super Brawl for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And if you go watch that, you can really hear that. That's really where the crowd says, "Okay, we're tired of Hogan already," because they're cheering Vader in that match.
Yep.
So they cheered the WCW guy over the WWF Hogan coming in, and the other time is the Giants debut. The original storyline for the Giant, the Big Show, was good. I thought it was a good idea. It's supposed to be Andre's son,
Yeah.
so I was like, "This is pretty cool." And they tied it into Andre. They had the cross. They did the cross around the neck tearing again and all that shit. I was like, yeah, it's actually cool. But, and then, the Giant wins on a stupid stipulation. But, it was, that's it. Other than those two things happening, I was like, I don't give a shit about him fighting Zeus again. I don't like him and Flair. The only time I liked him and Flair was him and Flair at the Garden when Flair beat him. So I didn't care for his WCW matches with Flair. I'm not saying they were bad, they just weren't for me. So him coming out and dropping the leg on Randy Savage, um, and forming the NWO with Hall and Nash. I remember when he was coming out down the aisle, and my buddy Nick's like, "Hey, see, here comes Hogan to save the day." I'm like, he's gonna fucking turn on him. He's here to help, and he's like, "No way, no way!" And then on the way down, what's his face gives it away. Bobby the
Heenan.
Brain,
Yep.
Heenan gives it away. And then boom, Hogan drops the leg on Savage. And I was like, yep, there it is. And even though I saw it coming, I was still shocked.
Yep. Same here. Same
I
here.
was still fucking shocked. It's like, oh, it really did happen.
Because he's coming down the aisle and you're like, okay, so it's Hall and Nash and then three guys from WCW. So traditionally a baby face wouldn't storm the ring to outnumber the heels.
Right.
It would be to neutralize it. That's why, like, he's coming down the aisle, and I'm like, no, no, maybe, no, maybe, no, no, no.
No, 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 no. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And you go down and we go down the list in history of fucking, you know, character turns, heel and babyface turns. I got to put the Hogan heel turn as the
That's
number
the
one
best
heel turn of
one.
all time. That's the
It's
number one
yeah.
heel turn of all time.
Yeah, that even is better than Andre's heel turn.
Oh yeah, Andre's heel turn is weak compared to it. I remember Andre's heel turn with the trophy being small and all the shit going on. I get it, but the Hogan one is just like, how could you do it? And if we want to deep dive into this, which I do now all of a sudden because I'm not kind of a prick, if you look at that ring when Hogan dropped the leg on the Macho Man, all of Hogan's history is there in that very moment. Bobby the Brain Heenan is there telling everybody, I told you this was going to happen one day as the commentator. Remember, he's sitting there going, I told you you can never trust Hogan. You can't trust Hogan. You can't
Yep.
trust Hogan. So Heenan's there. That goes all the way back to Hogan's AWA days. Then you got Mean Gene Oakland, the one in the ring talking to him. Again, connects all the way back to the very beginning of Hulkamania and both him and Heenan carry through the WWF run. Savage, one of his great partner and his great opponent, the guy who he turns on. It all runs through, and even Hogan's speech connects right into the WCW run. Somehow, if you look at it, there's a whole bunch of all of Hogan's career is there, and I think it helps make that heel turn even bigger. If you're paying attention, like wow, everything is all here. The only thing missing is the Iron Sheik scratching his head, going, "What happened?"
Wow. I never thought of that. All that stuff. That's pretty good.
It's a whole Hulkamania wrap up in that fucking particular scene.
Don't touch me. I've got a string of lawyers.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Or a team of lawyers, whatever he says. But it's funny
But
too. Like Mean Gene would never like kayfabe like, oh no no no, please don't hit me. No, he stands up to Hogan.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, it was just Oakland's fucking funny. Again, what we do our
I don't care if you Nash and Hall are in here and you fucking destroyed Eric Bischoff on the previous pay-per-view. I don't give a shit. I got lawyers. Get away from me.
yeah, don't touch me. I've got a team of lawyers.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you look at
So
that match, it's all there. All of Hulkamania is in that match, in that heel
yeah.
turn.
Yeah, that's a good
It,
point. That's a good point. And it's just
and if I
it's
remember right, if we go even deeper, Nick Bockwinkel's the commissioner of the company at that point in time too.
was he really?
Yeah.
Wow, how about that? An unplanned, you know, historical thing by, you know, happenstance, for lack of a better term. That's interesting. And then, I dug Hogan NWO Hollywood, but we can look at the darker side now as some of the matches he had were just terrible. I mean, obviously the Warrior and Piper, for instance, were just atrociously, booked and the idea and everything. And the idea of Piper in the beginning was good, where he was messing with Eric Bischoff and he kind of sold him out, or not sold him out, but exposed him for what he was. But again, man, I remember Jim Cornette when he was doing those rants on Raw.
Yep, I remember.
He was like, we saw two guys, um, where the crowd was passing out because the two guys in the match were suffering from oxygen deprivation because of how worn out they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of those Hogan matches though, and that's what ultimately led to the demise of WCW too, was they just didn't know what the fuck to do. But that's a whole different conversation.
Well, yeah, that's what they did do wrong for his whole run in WCW was rehash what was already done.
Yeah.
Him versus the best thing they did with him for a rehash was him and Savage. Okay. And they didn't even do it the right way. They ended up doing it with both of them in the NWO. him and Savage teaming together again was good. Excuse me, the reuniting of the Mega Powers, and then we have him versus Piper with a side switch. Hogan is the heel and Piper is the face. Piper was at that point shouldn't be in the ring anyway with the hip surgeries and everything. It's
Yep.
past the point. So again, that's what takes away from the WCW. If I say again one more time, I give the next midget or half-sized person in the world that sees me on the street permission to kick me in the nuts for using that word so much for no reason. Um, the
I could do that even if no little people are listening. I could do that for you. Kicking it up.
I don't
That'd be fine.
I don't want you to throw out your hip. So you know, you got shows to book, we got podcasts to do. The all they did with him was rehash. Like I said, the fresh stuff they did with Vader was good, and the concept of the Giant when he came in was good, but everything else to some degree is a rehash. I didn't give a shit about the Butcher, with Bruce Beefcake turning on him. I didn't
Right.
want to see any of the stuff they reran or I didn't need to see Earthquake. I didn't need to see Zeus. All the Dungeon Doom stuff was a rehash for the WWF in one way or another that I did not need to see. Um, it just and then again when you go to NWO, how many different times is he going to fight Singh and what different level? Him and Luger. It's all and it's again even that's rehashed stuff with the roles reversed. People who were heels during Hogan's 2 year red and yellow run for WCW are now the baby faces for his 3 year run as a Hollywood. So there was nothing fresh. I think if you had Hogan, it may have actually gone better and longer if they kept the belt on Hogan from the start, like a dynasty title as a heel,
Right.
and he just knocks down every single babyface that comes his way and beats them. But they did the cowardly heel. And if you listen to Hogan's interviews about it, he's like, this is exactly what a heel should be. I should lose all the time. The bad guy's supposed to lose. And when he does win, it's through nefarious ways. He's cheating. He's doing the exact opposite of what his old character was.
That's what was great about that Hogan era is every match he would win would be the craziest friggin' outside interference, overbooked ridiculousness, but he would come out on top. It wasn't like Ric Flair, sunset flip reversal where he grabs Ricky Steamboat's tights. This was
Classic Flair shit. Yeah.
right. This was, this was you're really fucking pissed because of all the outside interference. Because it wasn't the matches themselves.
True.
So, and then, we go to like you were saying earlier, we were talking earlier about the NWO return to the WWE and how that transpired, and out of nowhere, everybody's cheering Hogan, and oh, he he out of nowhere, he's the world champion again.
Yeah, off the nostalgia pop. Um, that's what got the belt on him. Vince McMahon changed everything up. It's like, nope, 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 put it back on Hogan.
Yep.
And if you listen to the interviews, everybody in the locker room's like, it's just a nostalgia pop. It's not going to last, and it didn't last. But even though it didn't last like it was for the very return at WrestleMania 18, it didn't die that bad either. You know, he didn't need to be the world champ, but he definitely could have still been having a Hulkamania run up at the top. Um, and he had some of his best matches ever in that time. His latter WWE days.
Yep.
Him and Kurt Angle is an excellent match. Him versus The Rock, as I already said, I think is his best. And even him against what's his face? That guy, the what's his face guy.
Oh yeah, him. That was the best one.
Hulk Hogan versus what's his face? Yeah,
Hmm.
that dude, Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
Shawn Michaels was a great match, and probably because of how bad Shawn oversold the match, but he didn't have bad matches when he came back. So, and oh, I can't believe I forgot about this one. Actually, him versus McMahon at WrestleMania 19 was pretty damn good.
Great match. Great
Yeah,
match.
yeah,
Um, well, that's the thing about Hogan's his second WWE run. He put over Rock,
yep,
who went on to become, the biggest star almost ever. He put over Kurt Angle, tapped to Kurt Angle,
yep,
which
yep.
when the fuck did Hulk ever do that?
Other than the
And
Sting, I can't think of him tapping out. Oh, did he tap out the Hogan Flair? He tapped out the Flair and he tapped out the Sting. Other than that, I don't remember him tapping out, but I'm sure he did as a heel early in the day.
and well, you could say he tapped out to Luger in the torture rack on that Nitro. Um,
Yeah,
but in his second WWE run, like I said, he put over Angle, made him look super strong, put over Rock twice, WrestleMania and then No Way Out following year. And he allowed Brock Lesnar to almost emasculate him
yeah,
on national TV.
yeah.
So, and then, he gets with Edge, gives him a little rub, tag team titles, and then, that epic match with McMahon.
The epic match with McMahon, and then what is what I think is another one of his top pops of all time, WrestleMania 21, right after he went to the Hall of Fame. Do
Oh,
you
right.
remember what happened?
Was that the where he flubbed the location?
Right, he say what?
Remember the one WrestleMania he came out and he was like, "Oh, it's great to be back here in the Silver Dome," and they were actually in the Superdome in New Orleans.
No, no,
What was
no.
21?
21 is where they were in Hollywood, and they have this bit in the middle of the fucking WrestleMania where that character Eugene came out, and for his little WrestleMania moment, and he got interrupted by the greatest villain since the Iron Sheik, Muhammad Hassan. And Muhammad Hassan and
Oh,
Navarre jumped
yes.
Eugene. They beat the shit out of him. They put him in the camel clutch. And then Hogan's music hits, and that crowd pops almost as loud as he did for when he beat the Sheik. The pop is insane. And he comes out to the giant American flag dropping down behind him and clears the ring of Davari and Hussein. Saves Eugene.
I think like the only other wrestler that would get even close to that kind of excitement, and here's another debate, which we'll get into sometime down the road, I'm sure, is Stone Cold.
Yeah, Austin gets that kind of pop. Yeah, Austin would get that kind of a pop.
Like even like I don't know if I should even say this, but even like Undertaker and The Rock and Shawn Michaels and even well maybe Cena, but that's not a pop that's not a pop you regularly get. So for Hogan, yeah, like that's another instance of Hogan being super over, even into WrestleMania fucking 21, you know?
Yeah, I mean they did. It's that right there is that formula going back to 1984. The superhero, the evil foreign villain, and
Yep.
out comes the guy, the All American, to save him. And you know that was Hogan. So there's the Hulk Hogan stuff can go on forever. And again, everybody who's listening, Eddie is the Hulkamaniac here. I appreciate Hogan. I'm not the Hogan Mark. Eddie's the Hulk. Eddie's got more Hogan stuff than I am. I actually am the AWA Hogan guy. The Hogan out of the WWE, the Hogan before Hulkamania time is when I really dug him. It's like that with me in music bands too. Like I liked Whitesnake before they got big, and so on. So the
Well, the Hulkamania-ness,
brother,
that's buried deep within my soul, brother. It goes back to, and now I'm gonna just read my friggin' resume. I would say I am one of the few people that saw Hogan fight Andre twice live. I saw him at Shea, and then I saw him
Yeah,
at WrestleMania 4. I also saw Hogan win the belt from the Sheik, as we touched on earlier. So my love of Hulkamania, it goes back. I mean, I remember the first time I saw him. My mother and father were separated, and it was the first time I was hanging out with my dad, and we were watching wrestling. And Hogan came out with Blassie, and he had that big fucking hair T on his chest. And
yeah.
and I and I remember seeing him like, who is this guy? So like it was one of those moments where you remember where you were the exact time. He just had a huge impression on me.
Yeah, he's a
So,
hairy beast at that point too, with classy Freddie Blassie. Um,
but Classy Freddie Blassie could never bring him to be the world champion, you
no,
know?
yeah, he's never got to be. He never got to be the world champion in front of the pencil neck geeks with
That's right.
Freddie Blassie. But you know, his heel run with Freddie Blassie was amazing. In fact, the guys that have managed Hogan, Blassie was the best, in my opinion.
Well, and that was like Andre fought up to that point. It was Killer Khan who quote unquote broke his ankle. Don Leo Jonathan. Trying to think if there were anybody else other than those giants. Ernie Ladd. Um, but up until that point, nobody fucked up Andre the way Hogan did.
True. Yeah, no, that was the thing. Hogan slammed him. Hogan laid him out with the Hogan hammer,
Yep.
bloodied him up, setting up that whole thing with him at Shea. That wasn't their first. They had a couple matches going into Shea, and
Yeah.
all the way up to Shea, Hogan was the one ahead on points. You could say against Andre. Um, which the reason why we're even having this conversation is we probably wouldn't be talking about wrestling right now today the way we are if there wasn't a Hulk Hogan to put wrestling where it is, to lay the foundations that were laid down, to help break it out from territorial areas with Vince McMahon to an international phenomenon. And that's the facts. Without Hogan in the 80s, we might not be talking about wrestling today.
Yeah. It's a good thing that Vince saw that the shit that was going on in Minnesota would have worked on a global level, and it did. I mean, here's a dude who was like totally, you know, 100% Americana, but he's doing great all over the world, literally.
With this episode, I could see the hate in the comments because of what's happened with Hogan outside of wrestling. And honestly, there's no reason to talk about it because we all know, A, he embellished the shit out of stories, which I don't get. He never needed to. He had some great stories to begin with. He
Yeah.
does not need to embellish. He did not need to embellish his legacy. It was already golden. I don't care about what happened with him and his wife. That happens with other people and their wives. His thoughts on his racial thoughts and slurs. There's enough people out there who still have that mentality today. So I don't see a reason to be touching on the negative stuff about Hogan when we want to. There's plenty of other people out there to do it, and that's
Well,
it. I'm not saying it didn't happen either. I'm just saying there's no reason for me to sit here and go Hulk Hogan's promos against Tony Atlas were just straight up KKK meeting fucking crib notes.
right. And to me too, like you're gonna talk about all the bad shit that Hogan did. Like we're talking about wrestlers from the 80s. We're like we're not talking about a bunch of fucking angels.
True.
Like I would bet and say that there were people who have done as bad or worse shit than Hogan in their careers, but because they weren't Hogan, we didn't hear about it.
Well, here's one for anyone out there who's going to jump on the Hogan hate train. What's worse, Hogan's racial slurs or Jimmy Snuka murdering his wife?
Exactly. Exactly. Um,
So,
all the antics we've heard about Ric Flair throughout the years.
woo, greatest of all time.
Exactly. But I mean, all the, you know, we hear shit all the time on shoot interviews with Kevin Nash on like how seedy they were and that whole thing. Like it was that whole, and I mean, eh, I'm not absolving them, but fuck, man, you're in a car with three other dudes driving up and down the friggin' Northeast. Shit's gonna happen, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, this shit's gonna happen. Look, the Iron Sheik and Jim Duggan got arrested for coke possession in Long Island, New York. I remember hearing that on the fucking 10-10 wins, going, then looking at my stepdad and going, why would those two guys be in a car together?
Right.
And I think actually that might be the true nail in the coffin for realizing there isn't a Santa Claus for me when it comes to wrestling.
Right.
Because I knew something was up before that, but hearing that the two guys who are feuding with each other right now got arrested for cocaine possession on the Long Island Expressway, I'm like, traveling together? Oh yeah, okay, it's fake.
Yeah. 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 It
Uh,
was funny too. I think Duggan told the story where they gave they they uh they had a drug test to Sheik, and it was Kevin Nash telling the story, and he was saying that like they gave the Sheik, they called him into McMahon's office, and they may be a little vague on the actual details, but it was something to the effect of he was called into the office to let him know that his drug test came back positive.
mhm.
And of course, the Sheik was like, "Oh, that's wonderful, Bubba. My test is positive. That's great, Bubba. I told you. I don't do no drugs. My test is positive." And they had to break it to him. They're like, "No, Sheik. Positive means, you tested. There were drugs in your system, and he didn't fucking get it," which I always thought was funny.
Yeah, and side note on the Iron Sheik, we can have this conversation some other day. We've had it already, but we should do it on the recording device here for the other peoples in the world to hear. Iron Sheik, one of the most legit tough guys in reality in wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was the bodyguard for fucking the Ayatollah, you
Yep.
know, an actual Olympic wrestler. Um, and it goes back to he's from that heyday when wrestlers were actual tough guys.
Yep.
All of them, even back then, so many of them back then were legit tough guys. That compared to today, it's like, oh shit, I broke a nail. I'm gonna be out for 6 weeks. I can't make
E-
TV.
Except for Hogan, who many have confirmed was not a tough guy, even though he was as big as he was.
Yeah, no, he's not a tough guy. That Hogan was not one of those tough guys. No, he was more the model of a wrestler. He's not a tough guy, not a legit fighter, not other shit. Like
But
well,
you would think 6'8", 320, you know, and ripped, he would have had that, you know,
just
attached to
based
him.
off,
But
yeah, just based off his size.
yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but no. But meanwhile, if you had me put money on it, I'd say Bob Backlund beats the shit out of him in a fight. So,
Yeah. Yep.
um, I've enjoyed the Hulkamania talk, brother, because we could go into deeper breakdowns of every single match, which I'm kind of surprised we didn't do that more here because we usually do that on the side. But you know,
You never
I think
know.
that's one.
There may be a part two down the road somewhere. You never
Well,
know.
how about with the fans who listen, comment in below. What is your favorite Hulk Hogan match of all time, and why? What was it about that match that you really enjoy that makes it stick out as your number one match? And between Hogan versus the Sheik, Hulk and Andre at WrestleMania 3, or Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 18, which one would you want to see Ed and myself do a whole podcast on and break it down? Vote down in the comments.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And there are others. There are others too. Like I think Hogan Slaughter from WrestleMania 7 is underrated. I think that there's that match. I'm sure you've seen it on YouTube or on Coliseum Home Video, where it was right after Hogan won the belt. They went back to Minnesota and they did Hogan versus Dr. D. David Schultz.
I just watched that Monday or Tuesday night.
That's a fucking great match.
It is a great match, and that's one of Hogan's earliest opponents in '84 was the bloodbaths he had with David Schultz. He had his bloodbaths with David Schultz, John Studd. Who's the other dude that came? There was a third guy in '84 that he had a good feud with, and then because the Sheik doesn't get his rematch until the end of '84,
Yeah,
excuse me, '85. But going into WrestleMania 1, Orndorff. Orndorff was the other
yeah,
guy. Was the who had numerous feuds with Hogan.
yep.
Um, and that's one. That's another one that was a great match. Which if I was going to go past 5 on a Hogan's best matches,
Saturday Night's
him
main
versus
event.
Orndorff. Yeah, Saturday Night's
Yeah,
main event, the steel cage match with Orndorff. The false finish. That's again that one's as good as the Andre false finish, if not better. When they both land on the floor outside at the exact same time.
yeah.
You know, that's not easy to do. Even though it's pre-scripted, it's not easy to fucking do to make sure both of you are in sync to hit the floor at the
Right.
same fucking time.
Yep.
So that when they keep doing all the camera angles, it's like, yep, nope, they're both hitting at the same time. Cool. So, that does take timing, and that was excellent timing on both Orndorff and Hogan's part. And that reminds me, I'll stop myself with this before I go on a fucking long ass jibber jabber of WCW dropped the ball with Hogan in his red and yellow run because since they liked rehashing shit that he had already done in the WWF, Paul Orndorff was there. And that feud, as far as I'm concerned, could have drew money again, especially if they connected it to the WWF. If Hogan came out, if Orndorff came out and challenged Hogan and, touched on their history, there's a money. To me, that would have been a money feud still.
It definitely would have been.
It didn't have to last forever. It could have been 3 matches and done like back in the old days, but people would have wanted to see that.
I think that that there was they saw Orndorff as washed up by then, which was the problem. But yeah, that
But
totally. I mean, that's all they had to do was, you know, it had only been, 10 years or so when that Hogan Orndorff angle was hot. So it was still by wrestling standards, wrestling stand wrestling fans remember shit. That would have worked. That would have worked.
it would have worked because it's 3 times in less than 10 years they had feuds.
Right.
And I get your point about Orndorff being washed up. I don't think he was. He still drew heat. Like when he put him in there against Steamboat, the crowd went bananas to watch Steamboat kick his ass. Put
Yep.
him there against Sting, the crowd went crazy to watch Sting kick his ass. Orndorff still had the natural heat. He's an easy guy to dislike. The only thing I could consider what people look at as washed up is that he wasn't the same size he was when he was in the WWF.
Mhm.
And that's because of the muscle atrophy. I think that's how it's pronounced. And he stopped taking steroids.
Yep.
He was his natural size. It's also why, for everybody out there, that's why Hogan was smaller. He stopped taking steroids. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. The guys stopped doing that shit, and that heyday was over. Orndorff's still strong. He could still move in the ring, and I could still see, in my mind, my imagination booking right now, Hogan cutting a promo in in the interview area, and Orndorff comes out, cuts him off. Hogan kind of tries to dismiss him or some shit like that. Orndorff fucking clobbers him, gives him a pile driver, and we're off and running again. And because especially just tell it like a wrestling story. Pile driver on the floor, Hogan's out, he's down for months. Look what Orndorff did. And then you have Orndorff beat a couple of the top big card guys to give him more credibility, and then boom, Hogan's back, he's ready to fight, and off we go. The
Even
paper.
if it was a Nitro main event,
Yeah, yeah.
like they could have at least done that.
That actually makes more sense than what I was saying. If they would have done it as a Nitro feud, like did 3 and done on Nitro instead of on pay-per-views, yeah, that's a great ratings bringer. I know I would have watched it, and some of the other kids, some of us other wrestling fanatics that remember that feud would sit down and watch Orndorff versus Hogan on Nitro. Sure.
I would have watched that more than Hogan versus what was Beefcake's fucking character? He was like,
The
was it the
Butcher, the
shark?
Zodiac. Nah, he
The
was the Butcher,
Zodiac. Yeah.
the Zodiac, and then he was the Booty Man. All of which, the Booty Man was just basically a rehash of Brutus Beefcake. Again, unfortunately for him, they didn't do the right thing with that big guy over there. This is dumb turning him heel. That was stupid, 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 stupid. Turn him heel. Uh,
But if he may have had the most personas of any wrestler ever.
we'd have to look that up, but it's possible. He's had a lot of personas, a lot. And speaking of him, something we didn't touch on since I did have a note on it though was early in Hogan's career, him and Beefcake were the Belair brothers. They're a
Yep.
tag team.
Yep.
So even before Hogan broke out as a singles guy, so those two have like deep history. Again, and with WCW, they could have touched on that history. It would have made more sense if there was an explanation as to why Beefcake did what he did, and there just never fucking was. There's just they needed to do the Hogan Orndorff angle without Orndorff, which is I'm referring to how every single tag team partner Hogan ever has turns on. So going all the way
Did
back to Orndorff.
did we ever get Hogan Beefcake?
Yeah, yeah. Hogan versus Beefcake took place in the WWF during Hogan's first run. I think actually he might be another opponent from '84. If not '84, he's one of the guys he's fighting between '85 and '86. Beefcake chased him, and there's go on YouTube. It's on there. It might be from the Boston Garden where the match is on YouTube. It's the Boston Garden or Toronto, one of those places. But him and
Oh,
Beefcake have a one-on-one.
well, but when I say did Hogan fight Beefcake, what I should have said was did Hogan fight Beefcake at Madison Square Garden? Because if it didn't take place in Madison Square Garden, it really didn't happen.
We're gonna find out right now. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. That may have just been one of those feuds that Vince didn't see to be profitable.
Well,
Because,
it's one of those things where it's throwing people in front of Hogan for Hogan to beat him.
well, but you'd figure since they were buddies, Hogan would have given him that rub.
They would have done more together. Yeah, well, if you look at it too, how many of Hogan's buddies actually are just like handout buddies, like
Yeah.
Brian Knobs, Beefcake.
Yep.
Um, I think the biggest rub Hogan gave one of his buddies is Jimmy Hart when he made him his manager, babyface. Hogan wrestled Beefcake in Maryland
Ah,
in
okay.
1985. So it was after between WrestleMania 1 and 2.
So
So
that was the tester to see how it went, and it never
yeah,
got to the garden.
yeah. And then here's one as we continue on and on and on, but should probably wrap it up here because we both got 9 to 5 is the Jake the Snake Hogan angle that never happened. You remember
Yep.
hearing about this?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And it didn't happen because as you said, the tester match, the crowd was cheering Jake the Snake over Hogan, and
Right.
that's what put the kibosh on the whole thing, chanting for the DDT, and that's what ended up having Jake become a babyface. So that turns out to be a double tester. If you think about it, Jake's the heel. They're cheering him over Hogan, which is a big no-no at that point because that wasn't the point in time where Hulkamania was still Hulkamania. So that puts the kibosh on that feud. But it's also what got Jake to become a babyface. And they start throwing Jake Snake in there against heels out of nowhere. I remember his first match against the heel that I can recall was the Macho Man for the Intercontinental title on Saturday Night's Main Event. Two heels fighting each other. And Jake got cheered. And then the next thing you know is Jake's fighting Kamala, Jake's fighting Bundy,
Yep.
he's fighting all these other guys, and he's suddenly a babyface. I don't recall any specific incident taking place that turned him babyface, other than they just started sticking him in front of other heels that people were not going to cheer.
Yeah, that was a natural babyface turn. Um, at the same time, though, they were starting to they was cheering Jake over Hogan, but if it was 1984, 85, would they have cheered Jake over Hogan?
Well,
Because
this is 19. This took place in '86. It's not that far after.
I know, but there was the 2 year Hogan run where he was, everybody loved him. And then once that, in the middle of the second year into the third year, it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, he's gonna beat this guy. He's gonna beat this guy. He's gonna beat this guy. So, what was that at the time where people were starting to get sick of Hogan, or was it just because they liked Jake more?
If you listen to the stories from Jake, it's because they like Jake more because this is still in the Hulkamania running wild time, you know. And if I think about it back then, '86 when this happened, Hogan's still super popular. So, it could be one of those things where Jake was such a good villain
Yeah,
that people want to see the bad guy win. It wasn't a matter of, depopularizing Hulkamania. It was you make a bad guy who's so attractive to the audience. Eventually, they don't give a shit. They want to see the bad guy win because he's cool. Jake was one of the coolest heels in the '80s, even before his WWE run, because of the type of character he played. He's cool, calm, collected all the time, and you know, take him into the WWF. He beat people. He really didn't cheat a lot, if you think about it, as a heel to win his
no,
matches.
he was just a fucking massive cocksucker.
Yeah, I mean, even his feud with Steamboat, at the end of it, he loses it, but that's pretty basic end of the smallest feud. He didn't really do anything that he backed up what he's backed up the things he said he would do. He always
Yeah,
talked about the DDT being as devastating as it was, and it was never not undevastating. Talk about a protected finish. So, there was reasons for the audience to cheer for Jake, and they threw him there against Hogan, and I was like, oh, shit, they're cheering for him. I don't think it had to do with people being tired of Hogan at that point. No, I don't think we started seeing people get tired of Hulk until going into WrestleMania 4 around that time. I felt
yeah,
like the Hulkamania started losing its pizzazz going into WrestleMania 4.
that's a good point.
The thing with Andre ran its course. Um, it was time for a new champ. I don't particularly think the feud with him and DiBiase was, gangbusters.
Nah, that was
Um,
barely a feud.
yeah, and on a side note with that one, you do know who was originally supposed to win that tournament, right? At WrestleMania 4?
Me?
Yeah, you.
No, who?
DiBiase.
Really?
Yeah. I will find the interview and send it to you. There's a whole story behind it. Apparently, the original plan was for Savage to take the Intercontinental title off the Honky Tonk Man at WrestleMania 4. Honky Tonk said no because he had a deal with McMahon. He's supposed to have the belt for at least a year. So that pivoted Savage into the World Championship run. They didn't want to put the belt back on Hogan, so they were actually going to come out of it with DiBiase as champ with a short run and then have him put it on somebody else. And they just skipped the short transitional run he was going to have. If you think about it, well, as I think about it, it was a better move to put Savage over at the end of that thing anyway, because how popular Savage was.
Right,
And that's a point in time where you don't want to send fans home from the biggest show of the year
right.
unhappy.
Yep.
That was the whole thing about WrestleMania back then. Is like we're sending everybody home happy. It's the end of our season, and the hero has to win at WrestleMania. It's not like that anymore, but back then the hero had to leave WrestleMania on top.
I think the first time that actually happened was WrestleMania 16, was it? WrestleMania 2000, where Triple H won the Fatal Four Way. It was him and
Him,
Rock
the
and
The Rock, Mick Foley, and the Big Show.
yeah, like that's the first time I ever remember a heel having the the big send off as WrestleMania concluded.
I think about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, yeah, 14, 15. Yeah, WrestleMania 16 is the first WrestleMania where the heel comes away the winner at the end of it. You're correct.
Huh. Well,
Yeah, it is. Triple H is the first one to break the mold. He's the one who walks off with the title at that point. And yeah, it's 15. Austin went over. 14. Austin went over. 13. Undertaker. Shawn Michaels went over at 12.
right.
Diesel went over at 11.
Well, Lawrence Taylor
Lawrence
went over
Taylor went
went over
over
at
at 11.
11.
I'm thinking about the title, the world title.
Right. Right.
Hart wins it not at 10.
Yep.
Hogan wins it at 9.
Yep.
uh,
8 was a mess.
8 was a schmoz
Yeah.
with Hogan and Sid. 7, Hogan goes over. 6, The Warrior. 5, Hogan. 4, Savage. 3, Hogan. 2, Hogan. 1, Hogan and C go over. It's baby faces galore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, based on that, like we covered the top part of Hogan's career. We didn't mention all the weird shit. We could easily do a part 2, which I'm up for eventually. So,
Yeah, I'm up for part 2 as well. And like I said, folks, give a listen and drop your votes in the comments on what we should do with those matches. And we want to hear your thoughts on the Hulkster, brother.
yeah, matches, moments, controversies, anything. Let us know.
Keep it nice. You never know whose mother's watching.
Yeah, like you give a shit about keeping it nice. Anyway,
Nice is for pussies.
to wrap it up, I'm Eddie,
I'm Dom.
and this has been the Monsters, Metal, and Moonsaults special edition Hulk Hogan and a bunch of other shit podcast.
Thanks for listening, fuckers.
Yeah, fuckers.
Monster, metal, monster.